Marketer of the Day, episode 597, How to Go Viral, Conflict, Narrative Tension, Emotional Messaging, Anger, Anxiety, and Awe with Joe Romm.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast. We're chatting with Joe Romm, who was named one of Rolling Stone's 100 People Who Are Changing America. And Joe has a game-changing new book, which is called How to Go Viral and Reach Millions. And it shares the secrets for consistently generating viral online content, which are words, images, or videos that are seen and shared by hundreds of thousands and millions of people. And Joe does this on a consistent basis over and over. So he's going to tell us how we can do that in our business. So how are things today, Joe?
Things are great, and I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to get some of those tips and techniques. I think that all of us need and want more attention on our apps, on our websites, on our books, all those sorts of things. And it seems like it's kind of tricky, right? It's kind of like a little bit of an art form to get something to catch on online, because if we're all business, if we're all about the facts, then who wants to share that? But then if we share a fun cat video or something cute, that can get shared, but then that doesn't help bring traffic back to us and doesn't help us get noticed.
Absolutely.
And so I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious to hear about what you have to say about all this.
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing for people to realize is that, look, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of people who are constantly generating, tweets and videos. And if you want to cut through all that, if you want to stand out and be heard, you're going to have to use the strategies, the techniques that really are the ones that the best social media superstars and other viral experts have been using.
Okay, great. So now I'm curious to find out what those sorts of techniques are. And I hear that you know of a simple trick that some of Hollywood's best screenwriters use to getting those viral stories out there. So can you unpack that a little
absolutely.
bit?
I think that I have this book out, How to Go Viral and Reach Millions. I actually recommend publishing on Amazon. I bought the Kindle so I can see what things people highlight the most. And the most feedback I've gotten is on this simple trick. It's used by Hollywood screenwriters and people like Oprah, and it's called the rule of replacing. Sometimes it's called and, but, therefore, but it's boiled down to the most simplest form. It just means replacing the word and in your speech or your writing with the word but or equivalents like yet, wherever possible, to introduce the kind of conflict and narrative tension that we expect in our best stories. You also replace and with therefore or equivalents like so to introduce the resolution of that conflict and tension. And while it may seem hard to believe that, such a simple idea could actually be so powerful, it turns out that almost every viral speech in the English language in history makes use of this structure and these specific words, and as I discuss in the book.
Awesome. And it makes perfect sense the way that you describe that, because it seems like it's tempting for us to just go directly from point A to point B, right? We want to make that video and we want to explain a few steps on how to make a website or how to build a business, but that's not fun, right? It's more fun if there's a problem along the way, if there's a conflict, if there is something to be solved, if I struggled with this, if I had all these failures. And then the other half of what you were saying there is it's just as important as having that conflict in there, the wrinkle in the plan, to also lead to a resolution, because we can't just say, well, I was going there, I had some problems, and then, by the way, here's some facts. We need to wrap up the story. So that makes a lot of sense there, but we add these kind of story elements to make things more fun and more layered and more dimensional, right? So that way things go wrong and then they get solved.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's a tendency when people speak to say, this and happened and this happened and this happened and this happened, or you should do this and this and this and this. And that's just not over tens of thousands of years of human evolution, all people did was tell stories to each other. And that's really how our brains are wired. And, I think that, as I sometimes say in the book, one of the signs that our educational system is so flawed is that the single biggest thing a great many people are afraid of is speaking in public. And yet, for literally tens of thousands of years of human evolution, that's all we did. You would tell stories, speak in public to your friends, to small groups, to larger groups, explain what happened, hear their stories. So, we've moved away from this. I had an 11-year-old daughter, so I've seen just how much of the first 10 years of her life have been nothing but stories. So we don't encourage people to tell stories, and then we don't teach them how they should tell stories. And I think that, we want, and if you're selling something, if you're selling something, you're trying to sell someone, how are you going to solve this particular problem that you have? So, right away, I've got to persuade you, hey, I had that problem once too, and I figured out how to solve it. So, right away, I've got to talk about how I dealt with that conflict, how I resolved it, how I, went through a process of becoming knowledgeable and expert in this area.
Yeah, that's a really good insight. That with all that, for tens of thousands of years, we were used to telling stories and being sort of heavy on the entertainment and then light on the information. And then we go to school and then they retrain us. They say, well, you have to dump the information. You have to give us this bulleted list. And what you're saying is, who's going to even relate to that, right? Like if someone's giving me a presentation on something, if there's no big problem, if they can't tell me what this is leading to, if they're not telling me why I should care, then why the heck am I going to care at all about some of those facts and figures? And you're making me think that a couple of days ago, I was just playing around on YouTube and I found some TED Talk by William Hung, the first American Idol winner guy, and he was talking about how his parents were mean to him and his parents wanted him to be a doctor, and how he went on this reality show and how he was really nervous, and then he snuck in the information in the middle there, but then most of it was entertaining, and if he hadn't had all those extra important elements that you're talking about, then I wouldn't have cared at all. And it's easy for that to be maybe invisible and for us to forget that we need to have those important things. So this is great. So the rule of replacing, instead of just saying, and this happened, and that happened, add the detour, say, but yet, and then resolve those conflicts within the story. And so I'm sure that this isn't the only rule that there is out there for going viral. So are there about 5 rules for going viral online?
Yeah, well, the core rule there, in the book How to Go Viral, I do talk, excuse me, about the 5 rules, and I think the single most important is telling a story and using this formula. But we know other things about the best stories. That one is that they're memorable. Another is that they touch our emotions. And as it turns out, there are writing tricks, storytelling tricks that make things more memorable. And these memory tricks, these are the tricks that the great bards used to remember their 2-hour-long epic poems when they would show up in town, and to make sure that the listener remembered them. And they're called the figures of speech. You know many of them: rhyme, alliteration, metaphor, irony, puns, all of those things that aren't literal but are, figurative. Those are all developed because they trigger parts of our brain for remembering and also for creating emotions. And ultimately, if I can't, if what I say to you is not something you're going to remember, then I'm not going to make a sale, or I'm not going to get a second date, or I'm not going to get invited for that second interview for the job. How do I, and this is a point I make in the book, we're in an era where you have to do two things. You have to grab people's attention, and then you have to keep it. And the modern language version of that is you have to be clicky and sticky. And so it's not just enough that I, blaze a siren and you noticed me. Now I still have to keep your attention because you have an infinite number of other choices at any moment on your cell phone or on your computer or laptop, whatever it is. So I need to be memorable. And so in the book, I talk a great deal about what social science has to say about what elements of a story are the most memorable.
Okay, great. And what I'm hearing from you is that we need to be catchy, basically, right? Like you say that, you need things like have like metaphor or irony or rhyming. And what you're reminding me of is years ago, I watched some reality show with Billy Mays, the infomercial guy. And he was saying that he likes to have catchphrases in his commercials that rhyme. So that way, if something rhymes, like you were saying earlier, it's easy for you to remember as a presenter, but then that sort of thing also sticks in a person's head. And I mean, and you're so right. And I think about, when I watch webinars or I watch people speaking from stage, many times they'll take their system or their package or their knowledge and they'll put it into a special phrase or a concept, or they'll invent something new so that way they can put their very own unique label on that. And then now that makes me sit up and pay attention because I'm saying, well, you're not just talking about this way of getting traffic online. You're saying this is the blank system. And then the other thing that you're reminding me of, which is a thing that I seem to forget again and again, but luckily I remember it about as often as I forget it, which is when people tell stories and they involve those emotions or they involve other people or they involve things like, childhood or past memories, then those are those things that really stick because we can all relate to being scared or nervous or worried or excited about something. So a really important reminder there to not just let things stay flat. We need to kind of punch things up a little bit. And so along those lines of punching things up, I imagine that your book, your How to Go Viral book, also talks not just about written stuff and blog posts and presenting, but also about a viral video. So can you explain to us what's that key to creating a viral video?
Sure, and I've been very fortunate to be able to work with some real masters of viral video. I work with this group, The Years of Living Dangerously, which started as a TV series on Showtime, executive produced by James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And the producers are these former 60 Minutes guys who have 13 Emmys between them. And we shifted from Showtime, where we won the Emmy for Outstanding Nonfiction Series, to National Geographic. And now the big focus is online viral videos. And last month, and you can go to yearsoflivingdangerously.com or the Facebook page, and you'll see, last month we had 86 million views of videos on Facebook. And so I interviewed both of them for the book. So I have a chapter on viral videos. And the thing that, I asked one guy who'd been at 60 Minutes for over 25 years, and 60 Minutes, still the most successful news magazine in history. There's no other news magazine that ever came close to it, and it managed to be in the top 10 programs in 5 different decades. So, and the key lesson that he learned from the executive producer, Don Hewitt, was you have to, everything they do is find the personal story behind it. And he tells this story of how he went to Don Hewitt and he said, I'd like to do a story, a couple decades ago, I'd like to do a story on acid rain. And Don Hewitt said, we don't do stories on acid rain. We do stories on interesting people who solve problems, and you have to find the one who is working on acid rain, who is interesting to keep people's attention, on Sunday evening when they have so many other choices of what to do. So again, it's finding that interesting personal story, and then the younger guy named Joel Bach, who has really been doing these short form viral videos. One of the things that he impressed upon me, which I hadn't really thought about, is if you want to do a good viral video, it has to work with the sound off. And this may be surprising to people, but for instance, about 70% of the videos that we do 70% of the views that we get on Facebook for our videos are views with the sound off.
Interesting.
Where people are at work or, something like that,
Yeah, and people are at work or people are out and about, or even just, it seems like there's a little bit more of a time commitment. If I go to view a video and I need to wait for things to start up, sometimes I'm just scrolling through my news feed and I'll see a Gary Vaynerchuk video or something, and I'm just scrolling through and I haven't even decided if I want to give this 5 or 10 seconds of my attention. So I'm my thumb's still on the screen and it's halfway scrolled away, and I'm just like, okay, I'm not going to fully touch it and make it go full screen and listen to the sound. I'm just scrolling past and I'm seeing the words come on. And I would say that it's getting to the point where maybe it's not quite half yet, but maybe 20 or 30% of the videos that I watch on my phone are with the sound off, like you're talking about. And, sometimes it might be even on a web page or something, but I'll just kind of be multitasking, or I'll be out and about and I don't want to stop everything I'm doing. I only have a few minutes, and I will watch those videos with the sound off, so that way I can see what's happening with all the things going on the screen, and then there are words in large print explaining what's going on, and maybe just captions, but maybe even a little something more than that. And that's a really important reminder there, like you said, that 60 minutes concept of don't just tell the story, tell the person behind the story. And I don't watch 60 minutes that often, but every now and then when something interesting happens, I'll tune in. And you're making me think of, they were talking about Amazon a couple of years ago about, like Prime delivery and the space program and the drone delivery. And they didn't just say, well, here's Amazon, here's this cool stuff. They mentioned Amazon, but the center of it was around Jeff Bezos and about his history and about what he had going on. So that's a really important reminder for me. And I definitely get what you're saying there of don't just make it about the stuff, the object, make it about the person behind it. And so it's really easy to say, okay, we need to make these viral videos. We need to add in all these story elements that you explain in your book. That way we are emotional and we're memorable and it's about people. But I'm sure it's easy for people to make some of these beginner mistakes. So can you explain to us what's maybe the biggest mistake that people can make when they post online to make things go viral?
Well, yes, and this is something it took me a long time to learn myself, and I've been writing online for 12 years, but the single most important thing is you just don't have much time to grab people's attention. And whether you are writing a Facebook post or a tweet, or even whether you're speaking in public, you have to grab them right away. And that's why your headline, your opening, or sometimes called your lead, this is the single most important thing. And most people are simply not spending enough time thinking about how am I going to grab you, and they're just thinking, oh, here's all the stuff I have to say, here's all the stuff I have to cram in. Focus on the headline. I quote in the book, I have a chapter on headlines, I quote David Ogilvy from 1963, a man called the father of advertising, and he said, only 1 in 5 people are going to get past your headline. And so you need to focus most of your time on your headline, because that may be the only thing that they read, and it's the sole determinant of whether they're going to keep reading. And the difference between a good headline and a bad headline is literally millions of dollars. And that's why he said he never wrote, when he did an ad, he never wrote fewer than 16 headlines for the ad. And, of course, they would test them. He would test them in different radio markets or different newspaper markets or different TV markets, which, of course, cost millions. But today, you can do testing at a very, very cheap price. You can do A/B testing on Facebook ads. On my website, we use a headline testing system that is incredibly powerful. But the point is, and the same is true of subject lines for emails. The difference on the opening rate of your marketing email is wholly dependent on whether your email is promising something, is grabbing people and then promising them that they're going to get something interesting, rather than all of the other noise out there. They could be emails they could be opening or videos they could be clicking on.
That's a great reminder for us to have that really impactful headline and to devote so much attention to making the headlines good, because if we lose them there, they're not going to stick around to listen or watch for anything else. And I mean, I love how all these James Bond movies just start off right there in the action, how it just grabs you, and then after they grab you, then they go into the story, and then they go into whatever they want to develop. And also the other day, I was just having YouTube back on in the background, since we're talking about viral videos, and I just had like different like presentation tips and like good speeches and things, just kind of going through an autoplay list. And there was something that really struck me, is to don't just say like hello, or don't just say good morning, or don't go with the usual greeting. Like hit someone when you're, say, if you're giving a TED Talk sort of presentation, ask a really powerful question or give a really crazy promise and hook them with that. And then after you transition from that opening to something else, then say who you are, then say what your name is. And same thing with the sales letter, like have that headline and have the subheadline and have some of that deck copy. And then if you want to say, well, this is from Joe Romm, and then get into the opener, then you can do that. And as far as those email messages, those email subject lines, with things being even more crowded in this day and age, I roll my eyes when I see some people say things like in their emails, like, well, here's a Friday update for you. And I'm thinking, who gives a crap? There are hundreds or thousands of other emails that I could open. Give me some kind of promise. Give me something weird or attention grabbing, or just something out of the ordinary to make me want to click and open and see what that's all about. So this is really great stuff. Some new information and some really important reminders that many of us have forgotten. So as we're beginning to wind things down, if we're looking for the low-hanging fruit, looking for some of those important takeaways that we can really get to stick in our mind, can you share with us maybe the 3 activating emotions that trigger content sharing?
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that?
Yeah, could you tell us what are the 3 activating emotions that trigger content
I'm sorry.
sharing?
Yeah, and I think so. This was based on a study of the New York Times stories that were the most shared. You know, if you go to the front page of the New York Times, you'll see, what are the most shared and what are the most read and what are the most emailed. And so somebody studied those over a couple of years to say what was the thing about the headline that really grabbed people. And they realized that there were certain emotions that were much more likely to get people to share. And you can think of it as the 3 A's: anger, anxiety, and awe. Certainly, people share stuff that outrages them. You know, that in this day and age, unfortunately, for better or worse, that's one of the things. Another thing that people share is stuff that kind of unsettles them. You know, you might learn, oh, that food that you always loved isn't good for you. Or did you know that this practice you've been doing all this time is counterproductive? And then the other thing is awe. When we're amazed by something, we very much like, to share the cat that can play the piano, or the amazing singer, who's only 7 or 8 years old, or something like that. So yes, you have to think, and I've learned this in the writing of the headlines. You really have to think very hard. Do I have a verb or adjective, something that indicates that stirs up some emotion? Because again, that's what is memorable. That's what draws us in. We want to feel something when we read, when we hear a story, whatever it is.
Yeah, I completely agree. Have that anger, that anxiety, that awe. And as you were explaining some of those examples, what came to mind for me is the news, right? The news always shares, like you have like the action news station saying, well, did you know that there are these 12 really common objects all throughout your household that might kill your child or might kill your cat? Well, tune in to find out. And which might seem sort of extreme or crazy, but if it was just something kind of tame and normal and, oh, tune in if you want to, then no one would tune in. And you mentioned on the cover of your book, I think, Donald Trump, and some people love him, some people hate him. And I'm the kind of person where if I see anyone doing anything that's interesting and attention getting, then I just take the pieces that I want and leave out the pieces that I don't want. But that dude, again, love him or hate him, is quite the master of saying things that just get us all enraged, right? If you're for him or if you're against him, and he sure as heck gets the attention that he wants. He sure as heck gets the results that he wants, and so that's a really good reminder for all of us. If we find ourselves getting angry or anxious at the news that's happening out there in the world today, well, instead of letting it ruin our day, maybe we can look at that with a magnifying glass and add it to our swipe file, so to speak, and say, well, that got my attention, so maybe I'll get attention in a similar way with my own marketing or with my own viral videos that I'm trying to get. So one thing that I'm really curious about here, Joe, is out of all the viral content that you've either made or seen out there, is there something that sticks out in your mind as the number one catchy, most attention-getting statement or hook or anything like that? Does anything come to mind?
Well, I would tell you, it certainly, you have to know your audience. That is for sure. I think that, there are certain things, like, how to. I mean, look, I titled the book How to Go Viral and Reach Millions. I think so. There's a certain segment of people who want to know how to do things, and if you're a marketer, you're obviously trying to solve a problem. So a phrase like "how to." People like lists. I think if you go, one way to see the kinds of things that grab is to find a magazine in an area that is of interest to you and see what the headlines they put on the front cover are. So there's a lot of, there are quizzes. People love to ask questions. They love to promise, 3 things 3 guaranteed ways of boosting your sales 100% type of thing. Now, but this is equally important, is if you're going to be a communicator on a regular basis, you have to deliver on what you promise. Because there's a lot of clickbait out there where people, you don't just want to have a headline that promises the world and then someone goes there and then you haven't delivered, because then you might get the one click, but the point is you need to establish a reputation over time as somebody who not only who promises stuff that's interesting, but who also delivers.
Okay, great. So promise and also deliver, and then also be on the lookout for those attention-getting headlines, like those magazine headlines that we see in the grocery store, because like you said, if we're seeing them, then they've been tested. There's been teams of people writing and rewriting and figuring out that exact perfect text to put on the cover of Cosmo magazine, because they're going to send out millions and millions of copies of those. So they're not just going to slap on whatever they think of. They really thought that through, and they really tried things. And so instead of us having to start from scratch like they did, we can just pick up on what's got our attention and then go from there. And we can even just make it as simple as saying how to do this. And then we can turn our focus on building up that awesome promise or 3 guaranteed ways of doing this. So that way people can get that enjoyment from those lists. And as you were kind of explaining some of those things, what came to mind is one of my favorite headlines ever. It was the they laughed when I sat down at the piano, but when I started to play. And it's like there's so much packed into just that little bit there of the person was nervous that he was using the piano, so it's clearly for like piano instruction sort of stuff, and then there's already a resolution, and it ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger there. So now I'm ready to jump in, and all that from just 9 or 10 words, so super craziness. And so what's really great about our conversation today is you kind of reawakened that magic feeling in me, especially because sometimes it's easy to get caught up and lost in the step-by-step processes of making a blog post, putting up a web page, uploading that video. But the lesson I'm hearing from you is that we should have fun with it, and we should remember that it's not about us. It's about getting other people's attention and giving people something in exchange for them watching our video, maybe some entertainment or some advice. But we can't just be all about the facts. We have to jazz things up a little bit and add that marketing juice. And so this book that we keep on mentioning here, it sounds really amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about what people will discover inside this book and where the heck can they go get it?
Well, people are going to discover, I think, not just the elements of storytelling, but a whole lot about branding, because ultimately branding is the story we tell about ourselves, our product, whatever it is. Everyone needs their own personal brand. I discuss why I wrote this on Amazon. I self-published this on Amazon, and I explain that the way Amazon operates now, it's simply, you can make more money self-publishing if you know how to do the marketing, but ultimately everyone has to do their own marketing. I can do ads on Amazon. In fact, I can purchase or bid for keywords that people search when you go online looking for a book. So they're you're gonna learn the key elements of telling a story, of giving a speech, of making a video, and of creating your own personal brand that can endure and last over time.
Fantastic. Well, this sounds like an amazing book for us all to get. So where can we go get it?
Well, you can go to Amazon.com and if you just type in how to go viral, you'll find it. I bought that keyword. I bought go viral. I have a website called rhetoric.com, which will tell you a little bit more about me, and it's got some of the nice blurbs that people have given me that you read at the beginning, and it's got links to Amazon. And I will guarantee that if somebody reads this book and tries it out and diligently practices, they will notice a big difference in whether it's how many retweets you get, how many likes you get on your Facebook posts, how many people applaud at the end of your speech, and ultimately, your sales.
Well, fantastic. Well, I think that we all could use that bit of a boost, and for many of us, maybe we aren't quite sure if that speech that we're going to make is going to land, and we're not quite sure if those viral videos or that marketing is going to get us the traffic we want. And I mean, heck, Facebook and all this social media, it's so crowded these days that sometimes it is tough to get more than just a couple of hundred views. So if you are in that boat and you say, I've got a really good message, I work really hard, I have good things to say, I just need to add a little bit more of the marketing dressing on things, I just need to beef things up, then go ahead and get this book. Go on Amazon, search for How to Go Viral, and get the paperback version or get the Kindle version or all of the above, and go through this book so that way you know what hot buttons to add to your marketing. That way you can get that extra attention that you can get and that you can deserve. And then as far as the website, Joe, so rhetoric.com, can you spell that out for us? That way we know that we're going to the right place.
Oh, yes. RhetoriC, the word rhetoric.com.
Super cool. You must have grabbed that in the 90s to get a englishword.com, right?
I did grab it a long time ago when I was just imagining what I might do in the future. Yes.
Nice. You had all these possibilities ahead of you, and now you've implemented them with all the viral videos that you made and the stuff that you helped get attention and this really amazing book. So go on Amazon right now and get it, How to Go Viral and Reach Millions by Joe Romm. And you'll be really glad that you did. And maybe after you use the book and you got some results from it, then shoot Joe a message or leave a review on his Amazon page. Just a couple of quick sentences, takes you 2 or 3 minutes. And that way Joe will know that he changed your life and your business. So How to Go Viral and Reach Millions on Amazon by Joe Romm. And thanks, Joe, for stopping by and dropping a ton of knowledge on us and for telling us what we need to know. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Please follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Robert Plank. That's twitter.com/Robert Plank. And while you're adding me, also like Marketer of the Day on Facebook by going to facebook.com/Robert Plank Show.